This man is breaking out of prison, took advantage of the prison's distribution of household goods, asked for a tube of toothpaste, squeezed it into a tray, mix it with some talcum powder, stirred with a wooden fork, and then gently mix with your hands. He succeeds in getting latex paint. He smears it on the wall. It adheres very well, but the color is still too obvious. The leisure program in prison is poker and chess, and the chips are these colored sweets. Ruben takes the blue and green ones back with him. Put the sweets in a plastic bag, and squeeze in the toothpaste. Put it in the hot tub. It dissolves at a high temperature. After a few minutes, the colored emulsion paint is ready. For the rest of his life, he kept buying these two flavors of candy. When he won, he told his cellmates that he loved both flavors. Step 2. Making the tools to escape from prison. Ruby uses a teacup to pry off the bars of the ventilation window. Although it doesn't look like much, but it can still be used as a hoe for breaking down the wall, to dig the wall as quickly as possible. When his cellmates were out for a walk, he said he would stay in his cell and rest. As soon as they had left, Ruby continued digging. As he dug, he found a layer of metal mesh in the wall. He accidentally cut his hand, but he couldn't stop. He had to race against time, because the guards could raid at any moment. But soon, the iron bar is not long enough. He had to steal a broom and remove the wire from the top and tie the two pieces together. This was long enough, and the digging is very smooth. As the digging progresses, the latex paint was running out, so he wet toilet paper and twisted it into strips into the cracks in the wall. This way there was no need to run out of plaster. In the days that followed, he dug frantically every day. Finally, he dug through the first brick wall, but just in time. The warden made an unannounced inspection. He hadn't had time to finish the emulsion paint. What was to be done? And sure enough, the warden spotted the problem right away. He took out his key and poked at a crack in the wall.
It's like someone's been digging here.
Ruby was in a panic. He had to make up a story.
I don't know. It would be good if you get someone to fix it. I don't want to get blamed for it.
I get maintenance to come in and take a look.
He got away with it, but the maintenance man is coming to check it out in 2 days. In 2 days' time, there's no way Lupe could have hollowed out the rest of it. He'll be found out for sure. What was he going to do? This man has only 48 hours to escape from prison. The only way out of prison was over a 6-meter-high wall, down the roof of the house. The route was clear. Then the tools needed to be made. He tied iron bars into a hook, then tore up the sheets, twisted into a rope, tied the hook to it, then he wrapped it in newspaper, tearing the tape, secure the two ends of the newspaper. This makes a simple weighted ladder. Finally, insert the remaining pieces of newspaper in one piece, and a tripod is made at the top. That's it. The jailbreak kit was completed. The next morning, he ties the newspaper support to his right leg. The ladder was wrapped around the left leg. He put on his trousers to conceal it perfectly. The tripod was then placed under his shirt, zipped up. Everything was ready to go. Ruby arrives in the activity room. The event was only an hour long, and it's heavily guarded. He had to be on guard against guards on patrol and surveillance cameras. If he wants to escape, the first 10 minutes are his best chance of escape. During this time, the guards are too busy registering prisoners to pay much attention to the area of activity. They can only see the prisoners through the windows. There is a camera in the corner of the cell. Underneath the camera, there is a blind spot for surveillance. And the guards, too, couldn't see this area. So the best place to escape from prison is above the camera. But the barbed wire is very dense here. It's very difficult to get through. There is very little barbed wire on the other side. There is also a cupboard underneath. It is easy to climb, but here, the prison guards can find it at any time. The risk is very high. After some deliberation, he decided to try the first one first, but there was one problem. What about the inmates? One by one, Ruby told them he was going to break out of prison. I have to say, he was very clever, because if he escaped from the cell, if someone found out, he would have been reported secretly. He could have got a reduced sentence, but if he escaped in public, if anyone dares to report it, he will be telling everyone that I am the informer. He will have a very difficult time in prison. When the guards weren't looking, he removed the tool, and hung the hook on the top, and held it up high. He tried to hang it on the barbed wire, but the barbed wire was too dense. It was too dense to hang. This did not work. Ruby had to choose the second option, although it was extremely dangerous, but he had no other choice. See how wild this prisoner is. Under the watchful eye of a prison guard, he tried to escape from prison. He hangs his tools on the barbed wire, tugging on the rope, using the lockers to leverage. He climbs up one step at a time, but just at the right moment, his clothes get caught, but he couldn't care less. He takes off his clothes. Over the fence, he managed to escape from the prison. By the time the warden reacted, there was no one left in the cell. All that was left was a note. It said, "Goodbye." The warden was furious and gritted his teeth, immediately formed a team to hunt him down, and on Ruby's side, had already stolen a bicycle, decided to ride to America, but on the way he was recognized by a father and son. He abandoned the bike and fled into the woods. Soon after, the FBI arrived. They found the woods were surrounded by a ring of roads, so they immediately surrounded the forest. Then they sent the FBI and dogs. They searched the area. As the weather was hot and dry, the FBI took turns taking water breaks. Ruben had to run around in the 66-degree heat. When he was thirsty, he drank water from the ground. When he was hungry, He ate bugs in the woods. It was nighttime. He snuck out in the night. It wasn't until the next day the FBI realized Ruby might have escaped the siege. They offered a $100 million reward while keeping tabs on his friends and family. Ruby realized this too. He didn't dare go looking for them, but he's got a big problem. In the jungle, he was bitten by a poisonous spider. If he doesn't get the medicine in time, he would have died sooner or later. He chose to risk stealing antibiotics. Then he found a ruined house. He hid and treated his wound, and that's when the reward money worked. Someone reported Ruby was seen near the ruined house. The FBI rushed there immediately, only to discover Ruby had already escaped through the back door. The FBI sent dogs to search for him, and Ruby jumped into the jungle. He dived into the river and hid. He was able to cover his scent and keep the helicopter from searching, and so it was. Ruby stayed on until nightfall. Once again, he used the night to escape. He found a lumberyard. He built a small cabin out of discarded timber. Needing a light source, he went to the cemetery late at night, steals the light, and so, he lived in the hut for 6 months. His wounds had almost healed. He was ready to leave and escape, but before he could set off, someone found his cabin. When the FBI received a tip-off, immediately mobilized their entire team. They had Ruby under siege. This time his luck was over. This is a film based on true events, based on a true story. He's currently being held in an even tougher prison, because for a prisoner of his intelligence, there's no telling when he'll break out again.